And we are live. Excellent. Just on time. We didn't make this thing. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for being here for yet another LinkedIn Live with Factors.ai. And we have a very special senior marketer here, Sai Ram Krishnan, who's a friend and also been a kind of quasi mentor to us, kind of a Ekalavya vision of like how we learned from his blogs over multiple times, and also have pinged him quite a few times for feedback on our product and our growth and our journey. So very, very, very warm welcome here, Sai. Thanks a lot for joining our session here.
Thank you, Shri. Thank you for having me. That's too kind. I did like 25% of what you said.
No, of course. To be honest, when we approach the topic of like we are going to talk to Sai, a lot of marketers and people within the company volunteered with questions like we should ask him these kind of things, or like he has written this blog, and that is something which I found interesting. So in a sense, like your content has kind of, in a sense, helped many people learn a lot of things about marketing, and especially junior level content marketers and product marketers for them to grow. So thanks a lot for that community service. But having said all this, to the audience here, just as a form of brief introduction, I'll just introduce myself and also Sai as well. Shri here, I'm one of the founders at Factors.ai. We are a 3-member founding team, ex InMobi, Google, Freshworks, and we are now almost a little more than 4 years now, 300 plus customers. What we solve for is signal-based marketing, which is fundamentally identifying which accounts are showing intent across the buyer journey and then activating them to drive more pipeline immediately. That's something which we solve for. More about Factors.ai, but here we are here to talk about the marketer's journey. How do marketers evolve? What are the things which young marketers need to be aware of when they are planning for their journey over the next 10 years? And most importantly, what are the things which don't stay the same? Sai has immense experience across the board, right from the first early Freshworks SaaS to all the way up to the next level, next Freshworks SaaS with Atomic Work, etc. So he has a lot of insights to share, like what are the things which have changed and what are the things which marketers need to look at. So this will be a pretty engaging conversation, and please keep the questions flowing in also. So we have to have a lot of questions to ask Sai with, so that we can distill his wisdom here without actually having to read one of his extended blogs all the time. Okay, that's great. Over to you, Sai, please. I know you don't need an introduction, but people, I have read some parts of it. I follow you on Twitter. So right from your journey back from Pondicherry to so many other things, including your father in Air Force and other things, if you can share some bits of yourself, it'll be great.
Thank you, Shri. Like, please tell me if like the audio is clear and everything.
Audio is very good, and we can hear very well.
Awesome. So how do I like start? So let's go from here. Like basically, like I'm a marketer. I started my career at Freshworks, and this was back in 2011. I was the first content person. Like a lot of people keep saying
before marketing.
Okay.
Where were you born? How did you get into this thing? Yeah.
Sure. Like I was born in Pondicherry. Like that's where I'm from. But I grew up all over the country. Like my father was in the Indian Air Force, as you said, Shri, and like I grew up in Delhi, Shillong, where the Indian Air Force has a radar station, as well as like a functioning like that's Eastern Command. I'm not in terms of like the command, but that's the closest base we have to our neighbors to the further east. And then I came down west to Jamnagar, where I lived, which is practically Air Force Western Command, like. Basically our closest airport to, our neighbors this side. So that's where I sort of like grew up. Jamnagar was, I started school in Shillong, but then like high school was in Jamnagar. But then after my dad's service, I returned home to Pondicherry, where I finished my 12th standard and then went on to college. I'm an engineer, like everybody. Who sort of like finds a way here, at least like at least the generation that I'm from, all of us are engineers. Once I finished electronics, I realized that I didn't know anything about it.
And it's something with our generation, we ended up with electrical and electronics, where like for some reason people pushed us into it. I also had the chat with Siddharth also on that line.
So my father was an electrical engineer. So I
Okay.
mean, he actually did ask me, like, all credit to him, because like my interest was literature. So he did
Mm,
ask me just before the first counseling. If you guys remember counseling,
mm.
right? So
Yes, of
he
course.
did ask me, Sai, what are you doing?
Mm,
Do you want to you want to go do literature? Tell me, we can figure
mm,
this out. But by the time what had happened was, this is 2005, right?
mm,
Like the entire generation of, like, my school was like the big school in Pondicherry. It's a French convent that features in the Life of Pi and all of these places. It is the big school of Pondicherry. And so, like, you've seen all of these seniors of yours go
mm,
off sort of
mm,
on their journeys to the US. They've started making money. This is like the late 90s, early 2000s. Everybody's like,
mm,
and you look at this senior of yours, and like, he wasn't that good, and he's like, making money. And why shouldn't I, right? Instead of
mm,
going and chasing what you're good at. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I kept it engineering. um, it, it was not great in the sense that I really wasn't interested, and I didn't do well. But I was good enough to sort of graduate. And then I realized
the analog circuits and the this thing is where we find our path towards literature, I think.
uh, signals and systems was the nightmare
Like,
paper. Anyway, like, I finished all of that. And then I realized, just I was graduating, that what am I gonna do? Because like I don't know. I have no idea what a capacitor is like, and like I've finished 4 years. So what do we do from here? Uh, I had written the cat on a whim, because mostly because there wasn't a cat center in Pondicherry at that time. I realized that you had to go to Chennai, and Chennai is the big town, right? Chennai is the big city for from Pondicherry. So we are like, okay, let's go to Chennai, and like, we can check out we can check out where to drink. So, like, this is great. Off we go. And I wrote the cat, entirely forgot about it. Came back home, and I was playing cricket one day. There's a police academy ground where we used to play. And my friend called me and said the cat results have come. Let's go. And he's like, I'm like, please, like, you go and figure it out. I'll tell you my number. And he called me. And this is before, like, cell phones and stuff, right? No, sorry, I just had a cell phone. It was like the moonlight. So he called me and he was like, Sai, this says 91%. I'm like, this is not my this is probably not my, you're seeing somebody else's. So let me come and like sort of like take you off of that notion. But as it turned out, it was me. And like the day before cat, I was so drunk, I didn't want to go. But then my friend sort of coaxed me into going and writing the
good
exam,
friends.
so I wrote it. Then I realized that I had like a bunch of like letters from all the places who were inviting me. Obviously not the IIMs, but at least like the tier two ones. And I chose Amrita, which is in Coimbatore. It
Nice.
was ranked number 20.
Yeah,
In
it's a good place. Yes.
yeah, at on the rankings at that time. But I was mostly interested because it's a hill station university. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to go, like, chill for a bit. And it has a great cricket program, which I wanted to play. Like, I played cricket all through my all through my school and college, and masters. So like, I wanted to play cricket, and so I went. Um, I used to bowl, then I can't bowl now. But then, like, that was what I was supposed to do, and they realized that I was good, and we got in 2 years. I think the biggest change was that for the first time, I was in a place where there were great teachers who actually sat you down. Until that time, I had no direction. I was just doing stuff because I came up with it on at the whim, and you were just like basically somebody who didn't know what was going on. At that time, the teachers, like, I had a professor, Deepak Gupta, is one of the most important people in my life. He said, you're good at this, sit down. You have, like, I was smart enough. Look, I knew advertising, I knew marketing. I just hadn't given a lot of thought to it. I was like, okay, great. I didn't think this was going to be a career of a sort or anything like that. He was the one who said, no, go to this course, attend market research, choose this paper, write a term paper here, go do this program outside, present it outside, and all of that. And then I realized that I really did have a knack for it. um, and yeah, like, it
That's
sort of went from there.
nice.
I became confident from there, and
Mm.
that sort of was led to writing a blog that actually got me into Freshworks.
Awesome. That's an amazing story. I mean, right from being an Air Force brat to a electronics engineer. I mean, accidentally or kind of force of times, which is there, the passion for cricket, and of course, I believe it's Shenshu, CSK, and Indian cricket as well. And also having a great mentor nudging you towards content, marketing, term papers, and eventually getting called by G to write, or G said he'll pay to write. Am I right? That the thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's my sort of like interpretation of it. That's how it is. He like I was this blog that I had written, and he told the story on Saster's main stage. Later, I think last year, and when it happened, everybody sort of called me up through the night, and I was sleeping. I was in here in Bangalore, and
I was there
when
at, I mean, that place. At Sasha, I
yes,
listened to GSP. This thing,
yes,
yeah.
yes, you texted me too, actually. So everybody sort of like texted me. My friends from Freshworks had actually called me, but I was like sound asleep. I woke up and realized that Girish had been talking about me. So basically, what had happened was that 80 people had applied to that content position, and everybody. And this is 2011. Remember, right? Like this is way before all of this, all of what the cool kids did. So I had this blog that I wrote in college. It was angsty, like sentimental, romantic stuff, like what you do when you're in college. But there was a couple of things I presume that they were good that Girish saw and said, this guy, and he didn't interview anybody else. He's like, it's this guy, and yeah, like I came in, there was no interview. He was like, this is what we're doing. Like, can you join tomorrow? And I was actually talking to my team today about this. I was so dumb. Like, I didn't like. You had no idea what work is, right? And I'm telling him like, Girish, can you give me the title of like content marketing manager? And he was like, Sai, there's nobody to manage here. It's you. I'm like, I know that, but because like my MBA friend should like at least see that I'm a manager. And he said, fine, like you write whatever the hell you want. And then yeah, then I joined. Yeah, so that's where it began.
That's the path to the original greatness. That's great. Yeah. I mean, one thing is, a lot of us, we are ex Freshworks alumni from the founding team, including so many members within Factors.ai. We work with so many Freshwork founded companies as well. So it's the original OG of startups and this thing. So now, kind of weaving in into the topic for the day, what has changed? I mean, you have seen the paths across Freshworks and later with Axel and with a couple of other writing other thing, including now with Atomic Works, which is now Freshworks, can say Freshworks 2.0 in one sense, given the founders, etc. What has changed in the whole marketing life overall, and how would you look back in this?
Okay, so
Loaded question, but can just.
no, but like I've been talking and writing about this a lot. I think in general, I'll talk about in two sort of like viewpoints. One is sort of where has the market changed? When we started out, we are talking the 2011 to about like 2018, timings. You had a really like we had a formula basically, right? The formula was that we had understood really well how to do category SaaS, category SMB SaaS. Basically, we would go after existing categories. We were really good at like taking a chunk out of like a really larger competitor. Uh, we knew how to play the SEO/inbound game at that, and because the ecosystem was actually good for us. Like basically the ads, the ads plus the content, because we could produce really good content out of India and augment those with ads. What had happened was that like there was this time and space where you could scale really fast, um, because the atmosphere was good for you, at that particular point of time. But then, the era ended, and that's what changed, right? Firstly, what changed from there is when I suddenly woke up, like I was in Excel between 2021 to 2022. I was in the VC firm. I was the marketer in residence, and I was like, I was watching this, right? I was watching this happening, and I knew that things were changing. Though, like I didn't have the like vocabulary or sort of the articulation, like because I know it, but I don't have the how do I don't have the business builder's view, nor do I have the VC view. Like I'm a marketer, like I'm from the ground, right? So I'm looking, and I could see that something's off. And now I can articulate what was off. The numbers are off, Sri. Basically, what is off is that you cannot build an SMB focused business out of India if you've raised a large amount of money. The numbers don't work. So that's changed. What you can, so therefore, and this is what has changed in the sense that if you see everybody is trying to go up market, everybody's trying to go enterprise, right? And why are they trying to do that? They are trying to do that because there's no other way. Because the numbers don't work in terms of CACs have gone up, the cost of customer acquisition is really high. Um, the talent that is available has sort of like saturated a level, and we need to like produce our own talent. We need to train our own talent to go beyond that. When we don't go beyond that, we have to go to the US, and that costs more, right? And so when you raise large amounts of money, you find yourself in a position where you have to like grow really quickly, but the market isn't allowing you to do that. It's not your fault. It's just that the market right now isn't don't allow you to do that.
Lot more higher competitive intensity as well.
A huge amount of competitive intensity. Like every I keep sharing this photo of the Martech stack. Every year, you think this is the saturation of it, but then it goes
Yeah.
deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can't see any of the logos that are on it, right?
Don't tell us. Yeah, don't tell us. We have lived that life across small siloed marketing tools into like you have to build larger and you have to build. One more thing I think which is happening from our own experiences at multiple levels is like it's not that you can't build an SMB business or even SMB focused business. The problem is copycats are there many. So earlier there was like maybe one Zuora, and there were companies like which can basically be a Zuora alternative, better, cheaper, better UX or better focused in a particular vertical. So which means there were a lot of verticals available, and you also had one large competitor, and you can run SEO, SEM based on that particular keyword and those kind of the thing. And you can also build a niche saying that I'm a little cheaper or better. Now what has happened is like for one, let's say one large Calendly or one large X CRM, there are like 50 others which are there. Not just from India itself, there are 3, 4 which is there. Maybe I could say like the kids of Freshworks and Zohos in some form, which is there. But there are also companies from Brazil, companies coming in from the Valley, companies coming in from so many other things, because engineering has become cheap. In a sense, it's articulating from another conversation with Josh Norris. Is like earlier you needed the 10x engineer. I mean, for example, when Girish hired the Chattimity team, acquired the Chattimity team, and Aravind Murthy joined, he was like, you are a 10x engineer from Google and other thing, and we want to build that next level thing. And you needed the 10x engineer to help you get something out faster so that you can sell easily. Now that 10x engineer is not needed, in a sense, like a lot of engineering can be done very fast because of tools and AI and so many things. So building has become cheaper, and hence marketing is far, far more difficult.
Yes, and important. Marketing is far
Yes.
more difficult and important.
And
So I wrote
important.
this in 2020. Actually, if you like on my newsletter, in 2020, I wrote this blog post called "This is Welcome to the Post Product Era," in which I said that engineering, like how do you build a product? Like two engineers and two laptops is a product, right? And this was not the case like when we started out. Like I didn't know what half of what like my engineering team was doing. I had to go and like, hey, tell me in, either tell me in English or Tamil what's going on so I understand, understand what you're building. But then the thing is, um, I mean, I was exaggerating, but the post-product era meant that your marketing had to be elevated beyond a certain level, and it had to be really smart and like, why? Because there's just so many products, as you say, right? Like if there are so many products, the only way to elevate yourself is through better marketing and better brand building. And so therefore, as you said, marketing is extremely difficult now, and also that much more important.
And that's one. So basically, we are into the era of 10x marketer. The most valuable resource is hiring the best in class or the best marketer in your team, or the first or one of the first few hires you have should be the marketer in your startup. And if he's your 10x marketer, then is the chance to grow or even grow for the necessity of VC money in the first place, which is there. That's
Yeah, yeah,
interesting. The thing. So now coming back to, like, we talked about the 10x marketer, the marketer's journey in a sense. What should be the qualities of the marketer? Because this can be helpful in 2-3 ways. One is for junior level marketers, like how they need to skill, not just skill, how they need to think or approach their job. Should they be thinking on silos, or should they be actually thinking on like how they need to approach their job in terms of how they market themselves, how they skill themselves, how they position themselves, which is there. Secondly, also for founders and companies, what they need to get in early stage marketing, and even let's say post 1 million or post 2 million in terms of revenue run rate and marketing, so that they can actually grow harder? So can we look into those parts?
Yeah. So like completing the thought earlier, right? There were two courses I said that had changed, right? One course is, of course, like what I'm saying, like basically what is the downstream effect of like the numbers really, being difficult for an SMB business. Everybody starts to go enterprise, and so you get a product like ours, like Atomic Work, which is like by definition enterprise. From the beginning, we are like only thinking enterprise, not thinking self-serve at all, for example, and so on. So that's the first point. The second point is the question that you asked, right? How has marketing changed, and therefore how are marketers being asked to change, right? Um, it's a very difficult question because, like, for me also, the transformation has to be very quick, and the transformation has to sort of, you have to be slightly lucky. And like, there's no two ways about it. I'll explain. One is that brand building is going to become extremely important, and the bar for content that you were producing before becomes way much more higher. Everything, the quality levels of everything you're supposed to do, like, is 10x, 20x. So for example, by the time that we put out a report in Freshworks, right, 4 5 years later into the thing, we had to put up a report of something about the industry and fresh service and so on and so forth. We had to do that in the first year itself, and it had to be really well done, and that required a certain kind of marketer in my team, right? Who has like solid ITSM experience, and I had to go after that marketer from the get-go, which is not what you would have done 10 years ago. You would have said, okay, like, the almost like an MVP of a product. You would bring an MVP of a marketing team, right? It'll be like, these are the things that are enough to start. Let's like push ahead from there. No, you can't do that now. Everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be like polished from the beginning, because you're asking for that much more money, from the customer. And so therefore, your marketing skills, the skills that you need to bake into the system, are that much more, like, you need to be that much more polished. The other thing is the evolution of existing marketers. Like, for example, one thing that I had to change was that, like, at least at Atomic Work, one of the things that I had to like dramatically shift was the intensity with which we were going at it. The bar for quality, like, has always remained high, for me. But in a lot of ways, when you are doing SME marketing, I say this to a lot of people, in B2B marketing, you can get away with a lot of nonsense, right? For example, if I was a copywriter in Zomato and I made a mistake on like the homepage or
It'll be a
something,
Twitter thread.
oh my god, they're gonna come after me, like, knives unsheathed, running after me, like, this guy, it's this fellow, right? In B2B, who cares? Nobody. Like, you'd write it, and 3 days later you would find out when a customer of yours is like, what the hell have you written on your, like, on your H1 and, like, pricing page. So that is a distinct advantage. But what has happened is, because you're again talking to these kind of people, each customer worth $100,000, $200,000, that guy, if he takes one look at this, he won't even know he's gone. So therefore, those mistakes that I would not frown upon once upon a time, I cannot, like, every little thing we go deep into, like, it's not like we don't make mistakes, like, that's stupid, because you're trying to do so much stuff anyway, right? But the thing is, the bar is so much more higher, and I think the atmosphere has sort of, like, everybody's understood that the bar is now so much more higher, and we have to be better marketers in every sense of the word. When I started leading teams 2016 or so, I think that one thing that I always was like, okay, I'll build like a happy team culture, right? I was always thinking about that. Like, on Monday when my team comes, they should be happy and all of that. But the change is, like, on Monday, if my team comes, they should be happy and they should be driven, right? Is also something that I'm thinking about now, because at that time I was confident I could provide the drive. And like, if they just turn up and give me that talent, I could make something out of it. But here now, no, because like each single person, actually, it's like CSK. I tell this to my team. CSK, we call it the dad's army, right? Basically,
Yeah.
all of my team has solid experience, and I expect them to behave like their own managers. I don't expect them to, like, I will not tell them exactly what to do, right? Because the scale is just so much higher. We are doing so much more stuff at a very high bar. So they have to come at it from that angle. They don't need me. now, and that's how the shift needs to be in terms of like marketing talent.
This is very, very interesting in multiple levels. Because, I mean, one era and also the same thing mentality also comes through for so many times later, also is like the Jugaad mentality. The thing you have a minimum viable product, your product somewhat works, and this thing just go and sell it. There'll be 100 customers, take them, get a funding, then iterate, then build, etc. Same thing also applied to marketing. That is like, I'll just hire someone who has been doing content into my product marketing team. I'll hire someone who has been in an agency just getting my SEM, something to get started with, some amount of like, let's say, like, let's get the website up and other this thing and then do. And what you're saying is pretty valid. And this is something which I heard from one other couple of other founders is like, given that now there are so much VC funding and also you're going after larger enterprises, you take funding, and when you're building the product, the first 1.5 years, whenever you launch, the product needs to be perfect in terms of the looks, in terms of the presentation, in terms of the marketing, in terms of each and every aspect how it is done. If it is not done, it's not going to go, and including stock and other complaints. But if it's not done, it's not going to. It's not something that you can iterate over these things.
No.
You can't find this thing which is there from a product point of view. But what you're articulating here is like, it's not just product, it's also the overall marketing, how you actually set up. That is marketing from day go for a startup. That is like, if you are, let's say, have a great idea, maybe even something like some design partners, etc. You hire the best in class marketer, start presenting that company as marketing to the next level. That is like as if it's $1 billion company already for it to actually achieve any form of traction at the enterprise level, which is there.
Yep. I mean, I couldn't have put it better. Like, that's it. Like, that's sort of the MVP era is over. Like, in every way of every form of the word, right? Which means all of us need to sort of play at a level that we certainly were not very keen on playing immediately. Like, we all played really well, like, as we matured, but not immediately. We were like, Wasim Akram before he warmed up. Like, one over is okay. The third over, when the pace is like really high and you can't, and you feel like you're a cat on a tin roof. But yeah, like that's that you need to be like straight up.
I think the standards have also changed, right? It's like something like, if you are getting into the first set of copies, or if you are starting to set up campaigns, or even your product marketing deck, everything, if you're going to even present as a startup, there are no iterations. Just like as you mentioned, it's a dad's army. You are supposed to actually do your killer best. You are hired to do the best. It doesn't matter whether it's last over 18 runs or so, something like, there's no pressure. You have to just get the job done.
Yeah, get the job done. Yes.
The thing. But how does that work for young marketers coming into the market? I mean, for example, people who are 1 year, 2 years, especially after COVID, the lack of training as well in terms of like something with a good mentorship. With marketing requires a lot of mentorship. It's not something like, it's an experiential learning in many ways, while at the same, it's not something like accounting where I learn out of the books, which is there. How does that work for young marketers? Because there are two parts to it. One is skills. Second is the ability to take pressure or responsibility for something like that. How does that come?
Yeah, like, that's a very good question. Like, and I really liked how you framed it, Shrey. So I'll say this. The reason that this is difficult, as opposed to, for example, a function like engineering, right, which you know more about, is that in engineering, either this component works or we go back and make it work.
Okay.
There is like no other, like, this button needs to work. How do we make it work? That's it. There's only one answer. Like, there's a yes or a no. It's binary. Marketing is very abstract. Like, there's a lot of abstraction in what we do. Like, what I think will be great will not be enough for Vijay, my boss, right? He'll be like, no, this is not great, Sai, you can do better, this and that, and he'll send me back. Though I'll be like, this is great. Like, in my team, somebody might come and say, Sai, we've done this. Like, look at this landing page. I'm like, this is not great. And they'll be like, this is great. But then this abstraction is what makes the job interesting, because it's art. It's not complete science. And so, like, taste is really important in marketing. And this is where I lead to the next thing. When you're young, you have this gap in taste, right? And we have to be really, really honest about it. Right now, there is a gap in the marketing talent coming into the market for SaaS. We want them to be at a certain place when we hire, and they're not at that place. And why is that? It could be, the COVID robbed them of like in-office experiences where that's the most you learn. Like, the largest amount of learning that I had was from simply being there. At Freshworks, there used to be Saturday deployments, right? And Saturday deployments were like, these are completely engineering affairs, right? They would order buckets of biryani and sit there all day, right? And deploy it and like, figure out, something is working, not working. They'd run here, like, the biryani back to their systems. And like, I had no job being there. I was 23-year-old, like, I understood nothing of what they were doing, but I was there. And the amount of experience and like knowledge you imbibe just from being there and looking around is what people missed. I think the current crop of marketers do not understand what work is, and following from like one path to the complete the completed done part of it. Right? It's not enough that you have a killer idea; you need to execute. It's not enough that you have a is there your idea for a podcast? You need to do 20 episodes, then talk to me. It's not enough that you have a thing for a webinar. Do 10 webinars, then we'll listen. Right? So, but this is a lot of work, and like I don't blame them, because like we the generation that came before me, Siddharth Deswal, Siddharth Sharma, Rohit, Mohita, sort of like, the leaders that, are now at this juncture, like we got it from a different place and we were able to learn at our own pace, which is something I was speaking to Mohita and Siddharth about. There was a little bit time for us, right? That time does not exist anymore, and that is not your fault, but however, you have to step up. So this gap, right, needs to be sort of polished out by focusing on like going back to the basics, which is sort of what I base my newsletter on, right? And this is sort of like what you would have asked me later anyways, but I'll go back to it. The thing is, there are certain basics of marketing. You need to be able to write well. You need to be able to have a taste for like what is a good design for something. You need to be able to go and say, if I write this, people will come. If you don't know all of these things, learn. And how do you learn? You learn by some kind of apprenticeship, some kind of like, going under, as you said, we all learned by actually being in the team and listening to people. So you need to find your way there. And for the first couple of years, shut up and listen, right? I just got it on the Ken a couple of months ago. Like everybody, and there is nothing wrong with the confidence that, young marketers are coming into the market with these days, but that doesn't mean they know the job. So
knowledge versus wisdom as well, which also you had put in it. Like you're not wise. You might know something, but you're not wise on how it applies.
Exactly. You have to combine that confidence, and like I love the confidence, right? You have to combine that confidence with a certain amount of wisdom, and that wisdom cannot be learned via books, or cannot be sort of like, it's not, if you take the shortcut from here to there, you cannot turn up there. You have to put in your time, and impatience will not help.
That's quite succinctly put in terms of like at the very base level, like people need to go back to the basics, which is like learn the hard way, which is like through practice under a mentor, under a guru, or and also spend more time in a particular job so that you learn the art, fine tune the rough edges, which is there, which is something goes back to all the young marketers here saying that, okay, life, your
So, sorry, Shri, like I'll just, because like one thing that I don't want, people to leave with, why is I saying something abstract? I'm like, if I need to break that down very quickly, it's a T shape, right? Even today, after all of this time, I want an expert, right? Go deep into one particular thing. It can be content, it can be SEO, it can be, performance marketing, it can be event marketing, it can be field marketing. I don't care. But when I'm looking for somebody, I'm looking for depth first. When you're young, go for depth, and the other two parts you can figure out, right? You can have like in the T, like the other two parts, some of it you'll automatically pick up just by being there. You don't like, you just need to be smart. So that's what I mean by basics, right? You need to be really good at something, so that when you come into the team, you can automatically start hitting the start hitting your straps, and once you do, you learn.
That's great. I think that's a good thing for the younger marketers and this thing. Now, going back to the founders have also changed over the last 10 years. I mean, 10 years back, Indian founders wouldn't have had access to international marketers. We wouldn't even know now LinkedIn has become more than 1 billion users. It's there in multiple levels. It's so many this thing. So we also know like what good marketing looks like or what other marketers are doing. So there is a compare which is there and other this thing. And they also have the expectations out of their marketing team within the budgets which they want to do. How do founders approach this marketing in this new era? or what would you say? It's marketing. It's also, there is a part which you talked about is the art, but both the art and science of marketing, like how do founders approach marketing to drive more pipeline so that they can actually meet the VC expectation goals as well in terms of revenue growth and numbers.
Right. So I think founders have really also matured. I mean, I don't say this from a patronizing point of view, like, because I think all of us have sort of like the ecosystem really got a kick up its ass in the um, last like 4 5 years, and I see everybody sort of having a really mature outlook on like what's going on. Like when we say younger marketers, like they're just coming into the system, so they don't know, they haven't seen the cycle, so it'll take a little bit of time, which is understandable, right? But whoever has been in the system has had like a little bit of a jolt. Okay, we need to get better. And like founders have really, like for example, with somebody like Vijay, who's also an engineer founder, right?
Mhm.
You turn up and you see an understanding that you would not have expected, a depth of understanding that you would not have expected. So you don't have to explain so much. And like, like you're still a Marte company, so like for you, like it's a given that you'll have a certain amount of like marketing sort of base done. But a lot of founders have now sort of realized that marketing cannot be an afterthought, which it was for a lot of 2010s. Like the product would be built, everybody would be like, hey, this is great. Then they'll think about positioning. Then they'll think about how do we get to that first 100 customers and so on. Let alone the first 100, first 10, and so on, right?
Okay,
But now I think what has changed with founders is that they are starting to understand that now marketing needs to be there from the get-go.
got it.
If not part of the founding team, it has to be there from year one, even before you write down a line of code. I was here in Atomic Work from day one, and they hadn't written code at all at that time.
Hmm.
And the reason, like, we really sped up in the last 8 months. And the reason we were able to speed up really in the last 8 months is I was already like a year into the system, and I knew what to sort of accelerate, what points to sort of like press down on and all of that.
Hmm.
So therefore, that is one thing. But like one thing that I would still like, if you put me on the spot and say like, okay, Sai, like what should founders still think about? I would love it if they start with positioning,
Mhm.
understanding positioning. Just that is more, sort of. How do I say this? More fuel than enough,
Oh,
right?
shit.
If, for example, if they read April Dunford's positioning book, obviously awesome, right? That's more than enough. It'll bring an understanding of like what the marketer needs, right? So what
Hmm.
happens is when you go on calls and like the founder will say, and I ask the founder, right?
Hmm.
What is your ICP? And I get this vague answer of founder,
Hmm.
here's a Fortune 1,000 companies with this and that. And I know that as a marketer, I can do nothing with it.
Hmm.
What you're looking for is a persona. What you're looking for is the depth of that persona. What you're looking for is a LinkedIn profile, so that I can go and like, do the research and say that, oh, this LinkedIn profile does this, this, and this. They hang out here, here, and here. So I can plan my marketing strategy around it. And if the founder does not understand positioning, it's a cardinal sin of like sort of,
Right.
approaching
Yeah,
marketing.
no,
Start.
it's actually works very backwards and it hurts very fast, right? If you're not
Yes.
saying that this is the market, this is what my product is going to solve for this segment, and this is why it's awesome, it's going to not just affect marketing, it's going to affect your product, it's going
Everything.
to affect your roadmap, it's going to affect your how it's going to get you bad customers, it's going to get you churn. So, and the other part is the jolt here also. It's like the jolt doesn't take 5 years to come in like in a zip era. It's going to come within the next 6 months where people are going to just walk off, which is
Yeah.
there. So
I,
that's
I had this thing that I used to say: positioning is not a marketing problem. Positioning is a product problem, and like it's not a head of marketing problem. It's a founder problem, and like it needs to sort of come from there.
got it. That's great. So we have 20 more minutes, and I have two sets which I want to talk about. One is like you have done a lot of marketing work at both Wingify and Freshworks, etc. You have seen a lot of companies in Axel. You have been doing marketing at Atomic Works so far. Can you explain like how you do marketing? How's your team? What are the things which you use? How you have structured? How you visualize what you need to do and how the work done, so that it's easier for people to say like, okay, this is what Sai uses. These are the things, the frameworks he applies, and this is how he runs the thing. So that will be one the thing. Second, then we'll open up for questions because we have a couple of questions coming in way also. And last, I'll just close with a couple of questions as well. Yeah.
Sure, Shri. Okay. What is the approach? Because we are an enterprise, first sort of offering and a product, there is not going to be a lot of search that I can like sort of go and grab, because nobody's searching for like $100,000 product. And nobody's going to make a decision based on this ad that you put up. You'll still get people who will come in for an inbound demo, but you have to convince them of it. And therefore, the model that I had used all my life, which is sort of the inbound model, has to be sort of improved, augmented. So
Got
I'll
it.
tell you,
So the standard search SEM bidding on competitor keywords, competitor alternative is not going to help.
is only that is not going to help.
I mean,
So okay, so like in if I have to sort of like break that down, and I have these answers ready, because earlier this quarter we had written down the marketing strategy for Atomic Work. It's actually like a 3-page document in which I had to like write down, and Vijay forced me to sort of like go into like excruciating detail on a lot of things, and therefore I have these answers. And here's how I think about marketing right now. Imagine you're buying so imagine if you tell me, Sri, on this call that Sai, I told you about Obviously Awesome, right? The book.
yes.
You're like, hey, Sai told me about this is great, okay, fine, and you've forgotten about it, right? Then you go home, and like 2 days later or 3 days later, a friend of yours, maybe Shri Krishna of Rocket Lane, calls up, and you're having this conversation about your companies, and he says, hey, Shri, did you read this book? You're like, hey, she also said about this, okay, I need to, but you're in a car, and you're not when you don't have the time to make the purchase decision. Great. You forget about it. And then 2 days later, you're in office at 6 p.m. and you're doing something, and somebody in your team is talking to somebody else in your team about this book. Then you're like, I need to buy this. Amazon, buy to Kindle. That's how a purchase decision is made. There is this rather ridiculous idea that people look at an ad and buy. No.
Can we use
There
the
is
snippet for an ad on factors.ai, our attribution and buyer journey as well?
Yes, please. Yes, please. So the idea is that what I'm trying to say is that this is the basic, sort of fundamental idea of marketing that I have, that you're not going to get people to buy with one look at what you do. You've got to convince them of your, um, you have to convince them of your, there's a word for it that I'm looking for, I'm not getting it, of being
Kind of
everywhere, right?
kind
So what
of
I mean by
always
that
on
is,
marketing, or kind of like people know you, people know what you are doing. I mean, it's not just like they know the book or something. They know this book is for doing
yes.
positioning very well, and they know this is the book where like multiple people are reading, so they get context as well, and they also get that FOMO to actually then go and look at it.
Absolutely. So there's a writer, online writer called David Perel. He wrote this article about something called the never ending now, in which he says that almost all of us are sort of like prisoners of the never ending now. In which I look at Instagram, one swipe and this thing is gone. Right? I'm in another now. One thing and this thing is gone. I'm in another now. Same way with Twitter. Like the present is all you have and nothing else matters. Therefore, marketing has to be switched always on, because you have to be top of mind, right? And when you make like for example, the book that I'm talking about is a 200-300 rupee book. If to buy a 300 rupee book, it takes you 4 touch points to think about, imagine how many touch points you need for a software that costs $100,000 and takes 2 months to implement. Therefore, how much more touch points should you have? And how many more people should talk about it before somebody like a CIO, like in my case CIO, is convinced that okay, I need to go check these people out. This is the starting point. Then you move on to the channels, right? Do I have great content that these people want to read? Am I putting it out there in places where they are hanging out? Once the content part is out, I have this. Am I looking big enough for these people, design wise and like website wise? Am I looking big enough for this persona to take us seriously when they come onto the website? That's another part of it. Next part of it, outbound, right? Because you're talking $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 deals. Like these people are in the market for the service management tool that you can go after. So can you reach out to these people? As you reach out to these people, have these people seen your ad or seen your content before? Because just randomly, if I call you and say, Shri, my name is Sairam, I have service management software, do you want? What will you say? Dude,
It's like,
please, I have enough on my plate. Who are you? Right? But if I say, hey, I'm from Atomic Work, I did this. And you're like, hey, I saw you guys. I have this. I read this report
so
that
the
you guys wrote.
brand recall helps the better cold call, the warming up of the lead with multiple touch points across marketing so that sales can actually sell faster and better.
Yes. So again, like these are all parts of the puzzle. The larger part of the puzzle is you have to be in front of them all the time. So how are you going to be in front of your ICP all the time is your question. All of these are answers, right? Um, and then comes the tools that we use to sort of do this, like obviously we use factors, but then like, but the thing is that what do I use factors for then, right? Like identification, right? I want to know who's here so that I use this and use this to sort of like use this data to sort of upload it to LinkedIn, for example, very tactical, and see if my impressions reach there, right? But this is again, like, I'm going tactical here, but this is just another small part of a larger puzzle. Like your brand is there, the content that you make, the blogs that you write, the SEO that you do, all of it has to happen at the same time. So and coming back to like what was different, right? 10 years ago, like you could do one of these things and expect some results.
So one channel works very well.
Yes. Now that's not going to happen. Like you have to pull all of these together. Like for example, yesterday, like I can tell you my calendar. Like yesterday, my team did a webinar. There's another webinar next week. And these are webinars like go off all the time. Like I didn't do a podcast. I was supposed to do a podcast. This month Vijay will come and eat my head. But then like there's another, like I have it scheduled next month, so I'll get it done, Vijay. Don't worry about it. But then like the thing is, like there has to be functioning, right? It has to constantly be up. So in the middle of September, when somebody opens up LinkedIn, right, he sees a friend of his, an ICP of mine, a CIO, sees a friend of his on our podcast. He's like, okay, cool. He doesn't have time to listen to it, but he's like, at least like seen it. Next part, he sees this report. Oh, this is a nice report. I should download it and see. He doesn't do it, but he's still seen it. Then my SDR reaches out. Hey, here's this report that we made. Would you like to have a look? He's not downloaded it. So now he's like, this is in my inbox. Now I will download it and I'll talk to this guy. Now this needs to happen again and again and again and again and again for the compounding of all of this we are doing: a webinar, a podcast, a blog, an SEO page, the outbound that we are doing, the SEO that we are doing, all of this needs to come together. And then, you get that one lead that's worth $100,000. And the thing is, like if there is another channel today, I will go after that channel also. If there is an event that these people are attending, I will go there and stand with like a hello, please try Atomic Work as well, because that's another touch point, right? I want to like for example, now we are we are on our early stages. We are like we've seen success. We have PMF, but we also, the product needs to mature. We are like doing a lot of other stuff along the way. So I'm not throw all my eggs in the basket at this point of time. But there will be a time when I will go completely all out. And if these channels exist, and if I found a way to make all these channels work, and if I then flood them with everything that I want to do, they'll all start working in the way that I want it to. But it sounds like all of this is easy. No, I'll rephrase that. It sounds like, yeah, it looks like, if you get it, you can all of this is simple, but not easy, right? There is simplicity to the system, but you got to do all of this.
No, that's actually a good, the way I was thinking about it when you were actually explaining, it's like something like having a 10x marketer, someone like you, who's like the puppet master with amazing, superb, vertically very, very good marketers. That is someone who's extremely good at SEO, someone who's extremely good at events, podcasts, SEM, multiple ABM, multiple of these things together in this thing, so that one, you can have an overall view and you can align all of those things. And what this actually achieves is, one, you get an always on marketing strategy, which is the fundamental thing, which is where like you are touching a particular prospect either on a LinkedIn ad, you are touching the same prospect on, let's say, organic posts, which is there, or they are coming into your website with great content when they are reading it. you are touching them over emails, which is also a form of marketing where like you nudge them saying that, hey, did you check out our new report, or why we are better than XYZ, etc. coming in. You're also showing them ads with the right context at different points in time across the buying committee. So they start developing an opinion about the brand and the problem use case which you do. And eventually, when the AE or an SDR actually calls, he's willing to at least consider giving 25 to 30 minutes of his time to say that, okay, let's take a look. And then we'll see whether we need to get into an RFP process. Then we need to get into this thing. And there is also the progressive things after that. Even after the lead, there is marketing where there you need to nudge them at different points in time, and you have to get through the RFP process. And that's the way it works. Founders, this is a masterclass on how you can actually take about looking at both your marketing org structure, but more importantly, how you want to think through marketing at different points in time and measure the touch points across multiple touch points so that you can eventually get the elusive that 100K deal, which is the enterprise deal, which is what which will take you to a growth journey, which is there. That's great. We are at 5:51. We have 9 more minutes, or maybe you can extend another this thing. We have some good set of questions. I'll just go over that before I get into the last set of questions. One thing which one of the LinkedIn users are asking is, this is more about carriers. How do we stand out in B2B SaaS marketing? What are those results that startups would absolutely look for? So,
so there are 2-3 ways I'll answer this. It depends on like which segment of your career you're in. You're in your first couple of years, or like the first 5 years, or the later 5 years. As I said, firstly, the T-shaped marketer is like really, really important. Why is this important? Because like one part of like what Sri and I were discussing was that every component of the model that you're trying to put out needs to work really well. So functional experts are becoming very valuable, right? Like for example, I don't know, like I'm not an SEO expert, but in my team I have an SEO expert, right? And she's really good. And like I don't like she tells me what I need to do. Like my job is basically to pull all this together, right? But she tells me this is what we're doing. Sai, does this make sense with whatever else you're thinking? And I listen to her. Like actually, it's the other way around. Like it's not like she listens to me. Like I come up with a plan. Like she tells me this is what we're thinking. These are the 3 things we can do. What are we doing now, right? So the functional expertise is really, really important. You can stand out with just that. Like I'm assuming this is an early stage question, and I'm going from there. So like you need to have one big sort of speciality. For me, as I was coming through the ranks early in my I was really bad, by the way. I was like not for the first like 5-6 years of my career, I was not at the top people in my company, marketers in my company. I was good at a couple of things, and therefore I was valuable. But like was I the best at that also? Like in my company I was, but and it was a really high level because it was talent, but the talent had to be added to drive. It had to be added to a little bit of experience when I got a little bit more sense between my years, and then my career exploded, and I was able to the only thing that I perhaps did well there was stay with what I was doing for a long time, and it allowed it to compound. And then I learned, don't break stuff, right? Once you know that this is what you are really good at, absolutely go deep into it. If you're young, in 2 years, you'll get bored and restless, and you'll be like, is this good? Is this not? And all of that. Read Cal Newport's book, So Good They Can't Ignore You. Everything that you don't let compound is a hit to your career. So stick with it. If you stick with something for more than 2 years, more often than not, you'll become an expert in it. And if you become an expert, you'll become valuable.
Same thing like lessons from investing. You stick to investing or SIP this thing rather than pulling in, pulling out, and other this thing doesn't destroys your wealth. Don't destroy your career as well in the same way. Yamani has a kind of a side question. Like if you're a one-man army in a startup and everything needs to happen together, where do you start? And it's more of a typical startup problem as well.
Yeah. No, this is a very good question because I know so many of my friends who are in this space, right? You have to pick and choose your battles, and you have to like understand outsourcing. Because like it's not because you can't do all of this. Like I know enough to do like 30% of what my team can do, 30-40% of what my team can do, and I can like add like 2 more things, and it'll lead to something, right? But the thing is, it's not good enough. So I need to pick and choose. Okay, what is most important at this point? Is it SEO? If it's SEO, can I outsource like a bunch of this so I can quickly get things done, right? Then, like, do I need, are there agencies who can, like, at the price point that I have, who can handle this? Then you sort of work with them. But the other thing is, firstly, get the budgets, right? The first point is always go to your founder and like think, what's the budget? Like, are you ready to spend at all? If you're not ready to spend at all, then the only way to do is content, and then you know what to do. If you have like a little amount of budget, you can think about all of this. Pick one by one and set them up so that when you've set them up and then you kick the domino, they start falling and everything sort of falls into place. And for that, what's the base? Usually, the base would be for an SMB business. It would be content, then SEO, figuring out what needs to be done, then writing the content around it, then landing pages, then like last will be ads, but like clear positioning, founder-led, marketing, all of that, right? Then start from there and then build around it. If it's enterprise, start with founder-led marketing. Use that to produce lots of content. Because like if I send a mail to somebody saying, "Hello, I'm Sairam, please try atomic work," they'll laugh in my face, right? But if Vijay sends, nobody trusts marketers. Like, it's just who we are. That's fine. So if Vijay sends the LinkedIn chat like, "Hey, I'm the CEO. I'm building atomic work," that's like, the other guy is like, "Yes, let's talk," because obviously, the founder respect is always there. So start with that. Now build around it. Then after that comes that kind of content. Then build your enterprise, function and so on.
Got it. I mean, this also one thing is like the art of outsourcing. Some of the things you might not individually will be able to even afford to hire and have that extra this thing. So, for example, you can get a great content agency or people who can do a SEO, content consultants, content marketing consultants who are freelancers, which is there. You can get them in and they can work for you. Or you can have a great SEM agency or like a multimodal SaaS marketing agency. Either can be someone like a Triple Dot or a Yellow Kite or the likes of 91 Ninjas, etc. You can actually work with them. Individually, there are a lot of fractional CMOs as well, which are there in the market. You can also bring them in because there'll be cases where like you won't be able to afford someone who's at 15 years experience in marketing, but you can afford a fraction of their time. And that would actually this thing. And there are so many things which can actually all of this come together. They come with experience. They come with, more importantly, the ability to convince your founders also in the first place. That is, it's not that the founders don't want to spend. They're actually unsure like whether this will yield any
Correct.
results, and they kind of just
That's a very good
kind
point.
of freeze. They freeze that many times. So someone needs to say like, okay, it's okay to buy this extremely good quality, this kind of a tool. It's okay to spend on this thing and build this thing because there is a result coming down the line. It's okay to do this. Then it becomes more easier. Just like convincing a hustle parent to buy a particular set of tools or whatever it is for their kids so that something can grow and something can do. And that's something which you need an external person to do it. It's better to hire, and that's from our experience. One more thing, we also have Rangarajan Muralidharan. He's having a talk about like as a marketer working on an outbound driven model, what specific challenges did you encounter?
Yeah. Actually, when we started, hi Ranga. Like when we started, we had this idea that we started out outbound, right? Like we started out trying to figure. We didn't have the kind of content speed and sort of like depth that we have now. So we started out trying to do outbound, and we realized that very quickly that we did not know how to do it, right? Because we had not all done it, right? We come from the Freshworks model, inbound driven, self service, and like it took a lot of ideating on what the correct messaging was. What would they respond to, and if they responded to, what was the next correct step to do. So much, right? Actually, like a colleague of mine, also an early, from the founding team of Freshworks, Vijay Shankar, he was the one who sort of figured that out for us early. Lots of hard work, like huge number of mails, and trying to figure out this for us. But then the most important challenge, I would think, is messaging. In trying to figure out what is the message that would get us these ICPs to come and check atomic work out. Like our product was nowhere near ready at that point, right? Like we were trying to like get them to come take a look at what we were building and give us feedback and see if that would lead into a certain kind of engagement. But so how do we pitch that, right? And like if you, and again, like you're in a domain which is like really critical to company functioning, how do you sort of like um, you know uh, convey to them that you're serious, and you're building something that's worth that time. That I think was the first challenge. And as I said, like we were able to solve it with a lot of iteration, and I give Vijay Shankar from our team a lot of credit for it. Like he's also senior. Yeah.
Got it. Couple of last two questions. I think I'll combine both Saranya's and Naveen's this thing. Saranya's, like, if you specialize in content as well and we go deep, do you recommend we also go even more niche into it, whether it's email marketing or social content marketing or white papers, etc., and go within that?
That's a good question, Saranya. Like, actually, like this is very interesting because I didn't think about it. I've never thought about this, but um, no, actually, I would recommend that you sort of like hold content down, not because like there is not enough work there for you to niche down, but rather that when companies are looking for people to hire, they will not hire based on email marketing specialists. Like now they do actually, but it would be better if you hold the entire content function. Like one of the things I was telling my team is that the content function or the SEO function doesn't exist anymore. Now there is only an inbound function. And inbound sort of takes into account three things: SEO, content, and social. Right. So you need to, and like organic social is a huge part of like what we do. So don't think of just content. Start there, and add SEO, add social, become an inbound marketer. Like
Yeah.
so, sort of like think of that as the next
Organic inbound marketing.
yes. So think of that as the next sort of evolution in your thinking.
Yeah. One thing to add on to it also is like, see, fundamentally, it's great writing skills from a content perspective. Once you have that, how do you actually maybe position it into a video? How do you actually position it into a, let's say, a social post? How do you actually, or a LinkedIn post versus a Twitter post? How do you actually position that into a long form blog or a white paper? All this comes together as different variances of like how you take an idea and how you weave and how detailed you go into it, this thing. But having that content writing skill and the ability to structure your writing very, very clear, the both the method, the matter, and the manner in which how do you express and other thing, that would actually give you a very wide-eyed view. Depending on organization, some organization will focus more on social, some organizations might focus more on certain organic content which is there, or even long form content which is there. You'd get that experience and go a little deep niche, but please make sure you have all this end to end. This will take 2 to 3 years or 4 years for you to hone in very well, for you to be like, okay, for content marketing you are one of the rock stars or one of the people who you need to hire, and then eventually you go top onto it, and then you also get understanding other things around events or paid marketing and product marketing and other parts around that as well, which is there. This is almost towards the end. I have a couple of questions. One last question is from Nishant. He had asked in the first itself, like, what works best for retention marketing in B2B? From a marketing POV, how do you retain? Just more
This is a
like
product
downstream.
marketing. Yeah. This is a product marketing, thing,
Mm.
problem and solution. I think one of the things that is terribly sort of misunderstood and underutilized in Indian B2B startups is product marketing and retention marketing. Why?
Mm.
Because we never had to do it in the early stages, because in last year in the last 10 years, because SMB marketing is generally high churn. It's generally a high churn business, and like however much of like
Transactional as well.
yeah, and however much
Transaction.
retention you do, it's not
Mm.
going to help. But now suddenly, because all of us are now selling higher tickets, longer term customers. So which means that we now have to do a lot of retention. And one of the things that we are doing, I can tell you, right, we are planning a series of product webinars, in which we go deeper into the product, but we also want to make it broader. This is something we just spoke about today morning, actually, in our meetings. You also have to remember, Atomic Work is not like it's not like a really established. We're also 2 years old. Like we've tasted success, but we're also, young. So we're also like figuring out a lot of this stuff. But product marketing can do product webinars. We send out 2 newsletters actually every month. One of them is with the product, one of them is about using the product, one of them is about what's new in the product, right? So a lot of touch points. Are these the correct answers? I do not know, right? But the thing is, you have to keep people excited about the product all the time. That's the answer to the question. Like, go back to the basics, right? That's how I think about it. What are you trying to do with retention marketing? You're trying to keep them excited about the product at all times. Again, if they keep seeing you coming up, if every 3 months there's a PR that you've done something, or this is a new module. This, like for example, we did a Microsoft very deep integration with Microsoft and announced it. That almost always helps, because that tells people that, oh, these guys are in for the long term, and therefore I don't have to worry about where this product is going to go. Combine all of that, and then you'll have like a good sort of like retention marketing, and not also product. And also, like for example, one of the things I love about like enterprise, now I realized is very good about enterprise businesses, is that they go and like take away a function, and it's very difficult to pull us away from it, because that means like replacing a whole lot of workflows, and people don't want to do that. And so like you don't have to think about it from the product will take care of it. But like from what I say, like think a lot about what can make you, what can keep, not make, what can keep your customers excited about it.
Got it. That's great. One last question from Vaishnavi. It's like, why
Yeah.
haven't you generated leads from your social podcast?
Oh, actually, I
My
have.
founder's question every single letter. Oh, no, for her founder's question. I work for
Okay.
a $0 to $1 million where every dollar matters. Can you actually attribute to your content efforts side?
Yeah,
Can.
like the first most important thing is what is being done, like what am I spending in a podcast? Zero. I'm spending my time, right? Maybe for Buzzsprout and this and that, like think $20, think $30. That's not the marketing spend. Like for the kind of customers that we are trying to generate, that's not a lot of money. Firstly, and like we can't. We shouldn't be thinking about it from that perspective. But why haven't I generated leads from social and podcast? I have, like I can tell you, like there's one particular CIO whom we interviewed. They are considering us, and like we brought them into the funnel. Now, will they convert or not is another question, right? But they're an MQL. They've come into it and they're looking. And we interviewed them, and like once we threw it out at a lot of other people, and the podcasts go out. See, the other thing is very important to understand is, at the 0 to 1 level, attribution is not your problem. And I've said this over and over again, but like nobody seems to get it. Like the 0 to 1, 0 to like 2, even, like your problem is not attribution. Your problem is that you have nothing. Why should people trust you? If you are not producing content in the 0 to 1, 0 to 2 stage, kiss your product goodbye, because you need to have volume before people think, oh, you're worth paying money for. And people should like, I wrote this, really hit essay on my newsletter about Rocket Lane. You can just search CMO Journal plus Rocket Lane and you'll find it. Maybe I can even like put it there because it's that important. Why is this important? Because one of the things that Rocket Lane really did well was that they looked like a really sort of how do I say this?
Large company. They actually acted as a very strong, large, established company where
Exactly.
they are there to play with the gorillas rather than kind of like I'm a startup, I'm
Exactly.
scrappy kind of other thing. One more thing is also, which is
Yeah,
another
I've
thing.
sort of put it out on the private chat if you could,
Yeah,
set
yeah.
it to the.
I'll add it. I'll add it.
Yeah.
I'll add it.
So like you have to, people should look at you and be like, oh, like these people, like I want to talk to them. And like nothing works better than volume of content and quality of it. Sorry, Sri, you were saying.
Yeah. See, one more thing within content is also is consistency. You do 5 podcasts, you're not going to get consistent. When you sign up for a podcast or even a LinkedIn Live, you have to think like it's going to be a 150 episode, this thing, which is for
Yes.
once a week, 3 years.
Yes.
Which means that's when you'll get traction. The second thing is also is like when you do a podcast, people don't listen immediately into a podcast. You take
Exactly.
shots out of it. Then you can start even making a large form content out of it. You can then make a social post out of it. All these things will compound, saying that, okay, then your SDRs, if they want to refer, like, see, we had a chat with them, this is what we talked about, why don't you actually look at it? All these things add eventually back to the whole buyer journey into actually giving conviction to someone who is thinking of investing $20,000 or $50,000 to you, saying that, okay, these guys are something for real. People are talking about it. They have actually made effort to explain what they do. Let me give them a chance. And both consistency, using it in multiple ways, and doing it and hoping people, as Sai said, that people should have conviction about what you guys are, because you are nothing in the first sense for them to actually this in a market where there are so many competitors. It's not just MarTech is flooded. Everything is flooded. Project management is flooded. Customer onboarding is flooded. You do DevOps tools, they are flooded. There are every YCs you see, like it's like people are getting anywhere funding between $2 to $3 million to create anything and everything out there. So people are creating, engineering wise, people are creating. The only thing which can actually get you the eyeballs is better marketing for you to get there. So that's the one part. So we are almost done. So it's also, we have also gone 10 minutes over time. I have last three questions. Of course, you mentioned a couple of the things. Three things. Couple of companies and founders. This is from an Indian context, Indian SaaS B2B context. Couple of companies and founders to follow. If you're an early stage marketer, if you're a founder looking at marketing, which were the ones you suggest?
Can you rephrase what you just said, Sri?
So let's say, like, I mean, a suggestion. I mean, this is more like a lister, which is basically like, who would you suggest to follow both as a company and as a founder? You mentioned Rocket Lane, but any others which you the thing, so that for both for companies and for other startup founders and marketers for them to look up to.
Right. Like one thing, I've been really impressed with my boss, and that's like not not like whatever I say he will still go after me in the next meeting, so like I can I can actually like even say anything. But then the thing is, he understands this. One of the things I really enjoy with Vijay is like what you said just now, right? We've done like 16, I don't know, some episodes, and obviously because you're doing so much stuff, like 1 week or 2 weeks something gets missed, but he understands that the miss is the problem, right? That's why he'll be after me. That's I get something out, like do like keep the keep the routine going. So having somebody who understands that has been a really big help for me personally, and I've been really impressed with how he thinks about product. So I sort of like try to learn that, because like it's not my strong suite, right? So I like that's why I'm not the head of product, like I'm the head of marketing, right? Because I don't do it really well. But so like that's one thing. um, if I would say like something, I really like Dave Gerard sort of tips and tricks. Why? Because um, he goes back to the basics a lot, and he doesn't prescribe answers. He's asking you to think, okay, this is how I have done it, how would you do it, right? And so that's sort of like a great way to start thinking about marketing. I read MKT1, Emily Kramer's sort of newsletter,
Yeah, yes,
um,
yes.
which is very good, but it's sometimes gets a little bit too prescriptive, which is the opposite of what Dave would do. But then like it's fine. Like in marketing, I don't think there are correct answers, right? So you need avenues to think, and like to follow and like go towards. Somebody talked about the Marketing Against the Grain podcast, Marketing Against the Grain podcast, which is Kieran Flanagan's. They were at HubSpot. They have this really good podcast. I enjoy listening to them a lot. But for me, I generally go dive deeper into, like, for example, um, if I listen to somebody's podcast like April Dunford, like I go back and like for 5 days listen to only April Dunford, so I sort of like imbibe whatever is necessary. But then I have a bunch of like 4 or 5 podcast episodes, not podcast episodes. I'll probably like put it on my blog later, which I go back to over and over again, because for me, like, see, one of the problems with the abstraction of what we do is that we forget. Like I can get too caught up in what I am doing today and forget what I'm actually like trying to achieve by the end of this year, and go off in tactics, tangents of my own. I don't want to do that, and so therefore those are reminders: stay on track, stay on track, stay on track. What is important, and so on. So I'll probably write about it.
No, actually, this also makes sense. I mean, whether you're reading Charlie Munger, so any great books, right? It's not about once you read it, even if you remember, when you read it again, the context changes, or like your experiences
Absolutely.
in life over that period of time. Then when you reread it again, it actually gives you a different kind of perspective for you to go back. The
Absolutely.
same works applies to podcasts and blogs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's one book I'd leave you with, it's This Is Marketing by Seth Godin. Like, so I think it's the sort of modern Bible of marketing.
That's great. Cool. I mean, Sai, this has been amazing. Not just from like kind of like what SaaS marketers can do, early stage marketers can do, founders can do, but more importantly, like how do you look at marketing? The basics, the T-shape, the what are the things which need to grow right from a startup perspective and from a large enterprise perspective. So, or when you're doing enterprise marketing. Thanks a lot for this. I'm very sure everyone learned a lot and there was a pretty active communication. And for everyone, the whole episode will be available on YouTube. We'll also be writing a lot of posts around this, so you can share and see it later as well. And for Sai, he is very famous. He has a Substack, so the CMO Journal, please follow it. And he also has a personal blog as well. You can follow that as well. Thanks a lot, Sai. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you for having me. I hope it was useful. Thanks, Sri.
It was. I'll just end the stream now. Just.